Hey there everybody, Travis Bowman here. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player and retro video game nerd. Let's go over some really cool modern upgrades that you can get for your Nintendo GameCube. Nintendo GameCube, of course, is an iconic Nintendo console that many of us have very fond memories of, but admittedly it's a little bit outdated these days, but there are some modern upgrades that we can get to kind of bring it up into the future a little bit. We've got four main topics to discuss today, so let's start with the obvious one, controllers. When we think of the GameCube, we really think about the Wavebird as the wireless controller, and this still is a great option if you want to play GameCube games these days, but the problem with these is that they're really expensive and hard to find these days, not to mention the fact that you need the dongle to go with this, and more often than not, when you find these at a garage sale or something, they won't have the dongle, unfortunately. And the other big negative about the Wavebird, even though it is one of the most iconic and best controllers ever made, you're going to have to deal with batteries. How often are you really playing your Nintendo GameCube these days? If you leave batteries in here, then you risk corrosion happening. And I've seen that happen before, and it's not fun. And in order to fix that, you're going to have to get really lucky with some isopropyl alcohol and hope that the corrosion isn't too bad. So that's just a really annoying thing to have to deal with these days. The batteries last a long time, and that's a huge plus for the GameCube. But at the same time, that means these batteries are going to be in there for a long time. And you might forget about it if you're doing other things other than playing your Nintendo GameCube, and then you might leave those in there and deal with the corrosion, and that's not good. So one other option that we can take a look at here, and if you're taking a gander at this might not seem too out of the normal. It looks like a regular Nintendo GameCube controller, a first-party one, and that's because it is. This is an actual GameCube controller, but you're noticing something, aren't you? No wires. Where are the wires at? This is an original controller that has been modified with a PCB by a company called 8-Bit Do. What they've done is remove the wire completely. In this little circle right there, there's a little hole. That's a charging port. So basically, you've got all of your original parts, the stick and the D-pad and the buttons. Everything is just like normal, only this time we've got a wireless solution for this original Nintendo GameCube controller, and everything works exactly as it should with the buttons and the triggers and stuff. This is a really good option for some of you that have original GameCube controllers and still want to use them. You can use these wirelessly. They charge and pair just fine. This is definitely a good option if you're looking to do something different with your Nintendo GameCube and get rid of the wires. Up next, we've got an offering from Retro Fighters, a fairly reputable third-party controller manufacturer. This is one called the Battler GC, and it's very much like a modern controller that you'd see. We still retained that classic Nintendo layout with the huge A button, small B button, etc., etc. For the most part, I really do like this controller. You've got two sets of triggers back here, just like normal, and you've got two bumpers there that, of course, only act as the Z button on either side if you're playing on the GameCube. But some of the controllers that we're looking at today can actually be used on multiple different systems. It just so happens that they're compatible with your GameCube as well. I really do like this controller. It's a really, really nice one, and I've had a lot of fun with this one, if we're being real. Now, there's another company that dabbles in wireless controllers specifically for the GameCube, but also the Nintendo Switch. And of course, we're talking about Nixie. This is a controller from Nixie right here. This is a white controller, as you can see. It's not my favorite aesthetic because you can see right there on that stick, it's starting to show a little bit of dirt. And I promise I wash my hands before I play any video game whatsoever, especially after I've eaten something. It comes with the dongle that you can see right over there. It is a multi-platform controller, meaning that you can obviously use this with your Nintendo GameCube via the dongle that you see right there in that GameCube right there. That's the one that goes with this one. But you can also pair this up with your Nintendo Switch if you'd like. See, it comes off just like that, and you can slide that sucker in your Switch. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 special, which is a really, really nice addition for a controller like this. And if you have a Switch and just happen to also have a GameCube, then this might be a good option for you. And now we're looking at my favorite Nintendo GameCube third-party controller. All of these are wireless, and this is no exception here. This is a wireless one too by Nixie. This happens to be the Nixie Warrior. This is my favorite way to play the GameCube these days. You can see that dongle right there is in player port 1. This is my favorite controller to use with the GameCube for sure. You've got this big A button, big B button. This is basically a replica, or a reimagining, if you will, of the original Wavebird. Now, I've done a comparison video before. I've done a review video on pretty much every single one of the controllers that you're going to see on the table today. I really do like this one a lot. It's such an improvement on that D-pad. And yes, it is a giant piece right here instead of just individual buttons. It is much larger than the original GameCube D-pad, which some of you really might like, especially if you've got the Game Boy player on your original Nintendo GameCube. This is a no-brainer for me. I really do like this controller. I've had it for a couple years now, and for the most part, I have zero complaints. You can tell by the coloring of that gray that I've put this through its paces. So if you're interested in any of these controllers whatsoever, you can find links to every single one of them in the description of this video, but that pretty much covers controllers for the most part. We've got our controllers taken care of. What about displaying your Nintendo GameCube on a modern television? Unfortunately, displaying the GameCube on any display at a high quality is a really difficult task. Now, component cables did come out for the system, however, they were sold only on Nintendo's website and they're very expensive and hard to find. You can still get them on eBay, but you're going to be paying upwards of $200 freaking dollars just for some video cables. Now, it's very important to note that only specific model GameCubes can handle that component out. You see what I'm looking at right here? This is the DOL001. You can see that right up in there, DOL001. This is the first model of GameCube, and you've got these two ports on the back right there. Later iterations got rid of this digital AV out port in favor of just the analog, aka component or S-video. Unfortunately, if you've got one of those, then you probably won't be able to take advantage of any of the higher quality options that we're going to be looking at today. But I've got two GameCubes here that are both that model, that DOL001. So we are going to be taking a look at some of those offerings here. The first one is from a company called Insurrection Industries, and you'll be getting it in a box that looks just like this. That's the little teeny tiny box, and it's an HDMI adapter that's called the Carby, and this is exactly what it looks like right here. It's a really teeny tiny little thing, but you put it in your digital out port right there, and you've got an HDMI out, and that's pretty much it. It looks really, really amazing, and please do not be that person that falls for that $30 cable that you're going to be finding on Amazon that claims that it's going to upscale everything and make it look beautiful. In the world of video cables, you always get what you pay for, and unfortunately, things are going to be a little more pricier than you might like for the Nintendo GameCube just because it is so difficult to get that video out. But with the Carby, it's really not that expensive compared to some of the other offerings that are out there, and it just works. That's the great thing about it. You just plug this into that digital out port on the back of your system, plug that HDMI cable into it, and plug that into your television, and all of a sudden, you're displaying a beautiful image on your HD television. It's also important to note that the Carby comes with its own little remote that I still have in this plastic wrap here. This will let you kind of mess with some of the options a little bit, as well as, you know, go through and add some scan lines and stuff if you so desire. The Carby is a really good HDMI adapter, and it's one of the best. It's not my favorite though, but it's definitely one of the best. We're going to look at the one that I think is the best right now. So let's go ahead and check out the GCHD Eon MK2, and you're going to love this, man. It comes in a box that is the cutest little thing you ever did see. It's a little teeny tiny GameCube. Isn't that nice? And it looks just like it too. It's crazy. It even has the little digital out port back there too, to remind you that that's what you're going to need for this. So you're going to plug this one into the regular port, and here's your digital port right there. So you got to plug it in both of those slots back there, and there's your cable right there that looks a little different, and HDMI of course is on this side right there, and there's nothing over here. What this is for is a very, very specific option. So let's say that you have a CRT television and you want component out, like most of us do on the original Nintendo GameCube. Unfortunately, the Insurrection Industries Carby can only do HDMI, but this one has the ability to use some very common cables that aren't exactly as expensive. Nintendo Wii component cable right there. So you can take this sucker and plug that guy right there into the MK2 Eon, and then all of a sudden you've got a component out that's a heck of a lot cheaper than buying the official component cables. And that's really all you need, is that one cable to come out, and then you can plug it up to a CRT, and it is freaking awesome, my friends. Now, admittedly, this one's a little bit pricier for obvious reasons. You get more options with it, right? But this is the one that I use just because I like being able to display my Nintendo GameCube on my CRT or my HD television at any given time. So I have an upscaler called the RetroTink 4K, and I'm sending that component signal to my television through that if I want to display it on my HDTV. But as far as using the component stuff, this is the best way to do it, in my opinion. You don't want to spend all that money on some old component cables when you could really take advantage of both. You could go out with HDMI if you so desire, but you could also go out of that port right there with the component cables from the Wii console. So that covers your video out options for the GameCube these days. Let's go ahead and talk about something really interesting called optical drive emulators, or ODEs for short. If you're a fan of my channel, then you are no stranger to that term because I use it quite a bit. I have a lot of ODEs for all my consoles just because it's a great way to preserve that console's history as well as future-proof it. When you have a console that's got a disk drive, odds are the laser's going to go out or the disk drive itself will eventually fail, and then you're kind of screwed. The reason for that is because they're not making these disk drives for these very specific consoles anymore. So ODEs are a way to replace the disk drive with another way of playing your games, often through an SD card or an SSD. What I'd like to talk about today is a very specific one for your Nintendo GameCube, and that's called the Pico Boot. So long story short, inside of this console, we have a modification called the Pico Boot. All that means is that you can utilize this serial port 2 down here. As you can see, I've got lots of stuff covering all these serial ports on the Nintendo GameCube, but this serial port 2 right here has an SD card slot in this device right there. And that's exactly where I keep all my games, is on that SD card. It's a really, really convenient thing to be able to play all of your games from an SD card instead of having to worry about getting discs that could be scratched, or it could be your disk drive itself that's not working properly. It's a real big pain in the butt. However, with this device, it makes things so much more seamless. And to be honest, you're going to have to do just a little bit of soldering to make this work, but I promise it is so worth it, my friends, to be able to access that GameCube library, not have to overpay for these discs, and not have to worry about your disk drive crapping out on you. Now, admittedly, there are a few more modifications that you can do, such as the GC video as well as the flippy drive. However, I don't have access to those, and they are a little bit more expensive than the Pico Boot. And I have to say that the Pico Boot is by far one of the cheaper options, and that's the reason why you should look at that one first. So far, we've covered new controllers, new ways to display your GameCube at a high-quality signal on a modern display, and we've also talked about ODEs. So there's really only one thing left to talk about, and it's a super niche thing, I'll be honest, but it's still extremely cool. What we have to talk about now is a way to connect your GameCube back to the internet again. Believe it or not, this is a very common thing for multiple retro consoles these days, especially in this generation. You can still get these consoles online, and you wouldn't believe just how many other people are playing these games online, whether they're competitive games or otherwise. There are still so many people that still play these consoles online, and it's a great way to connect with like-minded individuals such as yourself. So here's my GameCube right here. I've got the Game Boy player. This is my ultimate GameCube that I've got going on here, man. I have got the Pico Boot situation going on over here with the SD card. That's where all my games live. I've got both of these ports available, so I can do the Eon MK2, go digital out like that with the Nintendo Wii component cables. And right around here on this side, we have something that looks a little off, to be honest. That purple does not match the rest of it, but honestly, I do not care because I'm all over function instead of fashion. So what we have here is a brand new 3D printed Ethernet port designed for your Nintendo GameCube, which is really freaking awesome, man. I really, really appreciate that this is out there, considering that the official Nintendo GameCube Ethernet adapter is still out there on the used market, and it's fetching a lot of money, upwards of $100 these days, and that's just way too much for such a niche little thing like this. However, this is an adapter that is very, very affordable. We're talking like $30, if that, you know. I had to get one as soon as it came out just because I've never experienced the GameCube online before, so I had to check it out for myself. The 3D print right there is not the right color purple for sure, but if that doesn't bother you, then I'd say go for it. More often than not, you're going to be looking at the GameCube like that instead of that, you know what I mean? But it just takes a standard Ethernet cable, and you plug that sucker in, and you'd be surprised how many people are still online, admittedly only playing a couple of different games. We're mainly talking about Phantasy Star Online as well as the Mario Kart Double Dash game. But still, for that price, I had to check it out for myself because I didn't have a GameCube back in the day. I was a Sega Dreamcast guy, and then I moved on to the PlayStation 2. But it's so interesting to go back these days and just see what all you can do with the Nintendo GameCube. Just because it's old does not mean it's not gold, and the Nintendo GameCube is a really fun console, and there's still a lot that you can do with it these days. And I've been playing Phantasy Star Online again, only on the Nintendo GameCube. I usually play that game on the Dreamcast online these days, but I've been revisiting it on the Nintendo GameCube, and it is a lot of fun. And those are 4 pretty big modern upgrades that you can do on your Nintendo GameCube these days. And the best part about this whole thing is that most of this stuff is not that expensive. You know, you might be spending a lot of money on this original Wavebird controller, and I don't blame you because it's a classic piece of video game history, and it's very highly coveted, and that's why I have one too. I found a decent deal on it, and I couldn't pass it up. But to be honest, you could take upwards of $100 that you would spend on something like that, and you might invest in some of these modern upgrades instead, especially some of those HDMI adapters, because I don't know about you guys, but composite doesn't really do it for me these days. I hope you guys enjoyed this modern upgrade guide for your Nintendo GameCube. Is there something I missed? Do you think you guys would try any of these wireless controllers, even though it's not the Wavebird controller? Which one of these HDMI adapters do you think is right for you, and why? Let me know the answers to all of those questions in the comments section below. Be sure to check the link in the description if you want to grab any of these things for yourself. Thanks so very much, and I'll catch you guys at the very next video. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.